To order, let the record reflect that it was posted as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. We have a quorum, and first thing we're going to do is to have a moment of silence. If I could ask everybody to please take a moment of silence. All right, thank you all very much. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Shane, do we have nobody to do it? I'll ask Shane to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 on our agenda is the awards and recognition. Shane Strubhart.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Dr. Cavazos, administration, and audience. Each year, the Valley Morning Star's Reader's Choice Awards honors more than 130 businesses, organizations, and individuals selected as winners by its readership through a mail-in and online voting process. Its readership spans northern Cameron County, eastern Hidalgo County, and all of Willacy County. This year, we are very proud to announce that Harlingen Consolidated Independent School District earned Reader's Choice Awards in the following 5 categories: Best Elementary School, Best Middle School, Best High School, Best Principal, and Best Teacher Assistant Paraprofessional. Mr. President and Dr. Cavazos, would you please come forward to help us hand out these awards? For 2014, the ACISD winners are Best Principal, Susan Salinas from Bowie Elementary. I think it's our first standing ovation, Miss Selena. Best Elementary School, no surprise, Bowie Elementary. I'd like to invite the entire Bowie staff up for a photo as well. For Best Middle School, Coakley Middle School. Representing Coakley Middle School is Principal Pedro Sanchez. And for Best High School, Harlingen High School. Representing Harlingen High School is Principal Imelda Munivez. I'd like to invite the administrators over for a photo as well, please. Our next awardee is in the category of Best Teacher Assistant Paraprofessional, Richard Walter from the Transportation Department. At this time, I would like to invite the entire board forward for a group photo. That's right.
I should have just the candidate. She's upset that we didn't get cheesecake.
Why? Because you didn't get any cheesecake? Yeah. I don't like cheesecake either.
Yeah.
Before we go on, I want to congratulate everyone tonight. I honestly, I'm really thrilled. I'm not surprised because knowing the people that will receive these awards, I mean, y'all are top notch, and you every year you bring honor to our district and the performance of your schools and the transportation department. I mean, Walter, I don't know if you can, you got an all-star cast out there now, and we just keep getting better and better. And congratulations to everyone, Susan, Imelda, everybody. Thank you so much. It's really, really wonderful what you've done to recognize our school the way you have. Thank you. Does anybody else want to make any comments? George?
Mr. President, congratulations to all of the different categories, but I'd be remiss if I would not, I guess, say, take the privilege to recognize really Miss Salinas over at Bowie Elementary, which has been perennial. I don't know how many years, but perennial is, if you're in agriculture, anybody know what that is?
Of course. You're around.
Perennial, that comes every year. In other words, you don't have to plant a seed. It's there. It's taken root. And the evidence is very clear. Bowie, you've been doing this year in and year out. And when we looked at our accountability system, I just want to single this out for the public to know that in our accountability system, you have the 4 indexes, and then you have distinctions. And the distinctions in the categories reading, math, science, other areas that they have, 6 out of 6. Bowie got 6 out of 6 distinction. 6 out of 6. One of 3 elementary schools in the district to do that. But you've been doing it every year. So we owe you another big round of applause. And I say that to the staff who remains here, some left, but we really appreciate what you do. We realize the demographics, we realize what you work with, but definitely you have some practices in place that are working. And I would encourage Dr. Cavazos to let that be if you will, an incubator to see what is going on there, because obviously every year it happened. Now, on the sidebar, I did have a chance to be in a group with, we had strategic planning. I was in the group with Ms. Salinas, and, she even had me learning some stuff. Really, very good. We really admire you for your leadership and your team members. Thank you so very much.
Just one last comment I want to make, and Pedro, special congratulations to you. 2 years at Coakley, and you've really done an unbelievable job. Congratulations.
Do I get to speak for HHS? We were just talking at an earlier meeting that we had today, and Mr. McShann said, as part of the conversation, he said, that Cardinal spirit just never dies. But we appreciate you very much, and we're excited about what's happening on the Cardinal campus. It's a joy to be there. And we thank you very much. We thank everyone. This school district is in the best place we've ever been, and I think a lot of it is because we see that we have so much farther to go, and we see that as a challenge and a joy. So thank you very much. We're transforming as fast as we can, and we're doing it because of the leadership that's exhibited on all of your campuses and all of our departments. So thank you very much.
All right, the next item is the approval of the minutes. I guess we'll take them one meeting at a time. July 8th, 2014, regular board meeting. I know everybody's had a chance to look at them before now. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes?
Mr. President, make a motion for approval as recommended by administration.
Moved by Mr. De Leon,
I second the motion.
Seconded by Dr. Muniz. Any discussion or changes? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are approved. Meeting of July 23rd, 2014, special board meeting and workshop. Any corrections or changes to those minutes?
President, I move approval of minutes July 23rd.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McShann, seconded by Mr. De Leon. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are approved. August 5th, 2014, special board meeting, excuse me. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move approval.
All right.
I second the motion.
Moved by Mrs. Fleury and seconded by Dr. Muniz. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes of August 5th are approved. Next is item number 4, our approval of a consent calendar. Do we have any items on there that anyone wants to address at this time?
Mr. President, I make a motion for approval as recommended by administration.
Second, the approval of the consent calendar.
Been moved by Mr. De Leon and seconded by Dr. Pettis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next item, number 5, is public comments. Do we have any public comments? All right, no public comments. Item number 6, matters relating to transformation and school support.
Mr. President, board members, administration, audience, at the regularly scheduled Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meeting on August 5th, 2014, 2 items were brought forward for consideration and discussion. The first one had to do with our transforming of our current leadership development program, updating it to now the MIT program, or multipliers in training. That is clearly aligned with the strategic plan and the call to begin the process to perfecting our practice throughout the organization. Ms. Corton did that presentation. It also includes a segment that allows people to apply for Beyond the Principalship Academy. All of these layers call for a shadowing of the department chairs of those areas, but also cast a wider net to begin to identify leadership and emerging leaders throughout the district. The second item, which is aligned with the strategic plan and is being rolled out this year, is early literacy, the Foundation for Reading Success, presented by Dr. Noyola and Carmen Alvarez, our early childhood specialist. At that conversation, she spoke about the foundational pieces that are included in the K-2 programming and the things that are forthcoming as she participates in the design team for early literacy. It's how the students begin that will make the most significant change and difference in college readiness and career readiness. And so 2 items that are closely aligned with the strategic plan, and as we move forward, we'll continue to make presentations in that area. I'll turn it over to the chair, Dr. Perez, in case he would like to add anything.
I think it was excellently spoken, well said, Dr. Kowalski. I think that it was a very exciting meeting. We look forward to see what comes out with early literacy and the early childhood education piece. Just as you spoke so eloquently, just critical that we get that right, and we know that's going to have huge implications and impact to in terms of student achievement and in terms of maintaining grade level, and then of course, as you mentioned, workforce and college readiness. So very exciting stuff, and very, very timely. And again, we're sort of at the cutting edge of education in our not only in our region but in the state. And so, and kudos to you and your staff for that. The second part of the leadership training and MIT program, I mean, again, another critical piece, because it seems to me we keep doing things better and better. We already had great leadership development and developing leadership capacity. It's just getting better and better. What Dr. Flotis brought, you've sort of, times 10. And in terms of the sharing of best practices, kudos to you. And sometimes in education, I see sometimes a lot of folks sometimes our biggest barriers are ourselves, and the educator, and and other professions is the same way, because we don't share. Everybody kind of hoards their information. They want to be the best, and they want to say, look what I'm doing. But we take great pride in HCISD that we're sharing best practices across campuses, and I just really look forward to what comes of that. And if you thought it was hard to get in this district before, and it is now, with what we have now in terms of training our own folks, it's harder and harder to get in this district. But there's always an opportunity. But there's going to be some really good people that have to beat our own people here. So I appreciate what you're doing, and keep doing that. And we look forward to the next committee meeting, and keep bringing exciting topics. And it's stuff that's sort of impacting now. It's not but it's also very forward looking. So I appreciate that, and also the follow up on previous agenda items as well. So thank you.
All right, the next item is item number 8. Item number 7. Matters related to curriculum and instruction. Approval to submit to the Texas Education Agency an application for optional flexible school day program for 2014-2015 school year. Dr. Cavazos.
Good evening, Board President, Board members, Dr. Cavazos, and administrators. I'm here this evening to request that I may move forward with the application process of the Optional Flexible School Day Program, or as we know it as OFSDP, which is our Connect to Success program. This program would take place through the Evening School of Opportunities at the Harlingen CISD Keys Academy from Monday through Thursday, 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. Applications for participation of OFSDP are approved on an annual basis by Texas Education Agency. The application process also requires approval from our school board and district. Students enrolled in the OFSDP are eligible for ADA. Harlingen has had the OFSDP for the past 2 years, and this program has helped many students graduate and earn high school credits. This past year, we had 68 students enrolled to the Connect to Success program, which is our OFSDP. 35 of these students earned high school credits and are now closer to graduating. 14 students graduate. We have 2 students that can possibly graduate by the end of this month. That's one to report.
That's fantastic.
Mr. President, make a motion for approval.
Okay, it's
Second that motion.
been moved by Mr. De Leon and seconded by Dr. Pettis. Do I hear any further discussion on this issue?
Mr. President, I want to really commend Dr. Cavazos here for the optional flexible school day program and with Connect to Success. You said 68 students graduated.
Right.
No, 68 students were enrolled this year.
Were enrolled in
Yes,
it. And if we look at that in terms of what would happen to those students if they were not, where would they be? They would be tax users instead of taxpayers. And that's very, very important. And I know that we'll have flexibility, 4:30 to 8:30. Many of those students work.
Yes.
Many of those students are parents. So they don't really have an opportunity to be in school during the regular day. So I think that kind of flexibility speaks well, and moving forward with this is something I think is very, very positive. And we look forward to your Connect to Success program. It's September the
13th.
13th. So we need to put that on our calendar. That's a Saturday, right?
Yes, sir.
We might give you a pass, Doctor. I will give you a pass
One
for
of these
that,
years I
okay?
want to make it.
That's all right. I'm giving you a pass because no, seriously, it's an experience that we should, as board members, we do it. But when you go out into the neighborhoods and you meet parents and grandparents, extended family members, and actually students come in that day to enroll, I know that this is so important. So we just want to thank you for what you do and your staff. It means a great deal to this district, so thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I also want to concur with everything that Mr. McShann said, but I also kind of want to add a little bit that maybe some people don't know about Dr. Cavazos is funds are limited, they're tight, opportunities are in abundance, but funding is short. And one of the things that Dr. Cavazos does that a lot of other individuals don't do is he goes and looks for resources, goes out there and finds funding, that maybe not, that it doesn't have from the district, but then he collaborates with other school districts and collaborates, looking for state funding, federal funding, and because of that, he has a lot of, there's additional funding that Dr. Fausto is going to be receiving that's going to help our community with closing the gap of individuals that unfortunately dropped out of school, trying to bring them back on board. And so Dr. Cavazos not only leads in the Success to Connect, but he's also looking for funding to help a lot more individuals in the community. So, we commend you on that. And a lot of times you're an unsung hero, and a lot of people don't realize all the work that you do, not only just serving these individuals, but looking for resources to continue serving and expanding who and how you help. So thank you, Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
We already had a motion
Call the
by Javier in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. All right, moved by Mr. De Leon, seconded by Dr. Pettis. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote on the item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 8, approval of internal audit plan for 2014-2015. Ms. Ledesma.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Board members, Dr. Cavazos, and superintendent staff. Earlier this evening, the audit committee and I reviewed the audit plan for this coming year. I respectfully request your approval of the plan at this time.
Are there any questions? Ms. Fleury?
Mr. President, I would like to move approval of the audit plan at this time, having had a very full discussion of each of the items prior to this meeting.
I'd like to second the motion.
Been moved by Mrs. Fleury and seconded by Mrs. Young. Any further discussion?
I would just like to make the comment that in all of these pages, this entire report, there was not a single negative finding on the school district. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate, Dr. Cavazos, the work of you and your staff.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the internal audit quarterly report. Ms. Ledesma.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. The audit committee and I met earlier this afternoon and heard the following 7 audit reports. Special activity fund audit reports for Zavala Elementary, Lamar Elementary, Jefferson Elementary, Keys Academy, and Long Elementary. We also heard a report on the activity funds annual audit and a report on the PEMS attendance accounting procedures and data quality. These reports were discussed with the audit committee members in detail, and I am here to answer any questions you may have, unless Mrs. Fleury would like to elaborate on what we discussed.
No, again, Mr. President, I would like to move approval, please.
It's not an action item.
This was not an action item. Okay, thank you.
Non-action item, but thank you.
Well, may I add that in that report, no negative findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ledesma, very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Nellie.
Next is consideration and approval of carrier for health insurance for 2014-2015. Julio Cavazos.
Well, Mr. President, just need to let the board know that I need to abstain from discussion and voting on this matter due to a conflict.
Okay. Duly noted. Mr. Cavazos?
Thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. Agenda item 8C is consideration and approval of carrier for health insurance for the 2014-2015 school year. We discussed this in detail with our employee benefit committee earlier today. Administration is recommending the Blue Cross Blue Shield Plan 1500 with a base plan and Plan 500 with a buy-up plan. This is on page 20 of your report, your packet that we handed out. Administration also recommended not to include an H&R record for this plan. Administration feels comfortable that it can handle the calls from the employees as we've done in the past 8-10 years. Mrs. Young is the chair for the committee, if she would like to add anything.
Yes, we did discuss at length the plans and looked at the costs and made comparisons, which actually had already been made for us as far as cost and what differences there would be. And my impression from the committee members was that they do not have a problem with us continuing to handle the claims here in the office of Rachel Cortez and her 3 helpers, and that everybody felt like the Blue Cross plan was the best one as far as not raising our fees so that we have to ask employees to pay part of it.
I'd like to add, Julio, I think you, Rachel, your staff did an outstanding job of making a thorough presentation. I know a lot of work went into it, and we got to see a lot of the different options that were out there. Over the last several months, I know it's been quite an ordeal, and you all have done a great job evaluating it and bringing all the information to the board and to our committee this afternoon. Thank you so much for your work. Is there any further discussion on this item before we proceed to vote? I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration in regard to the health care insurance.
It's been moved by Mrs. Young,
Second.
seconded by Mr. De Leon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against say nay. It carries. Let the record reflect that, again, that Dr. Pettis did not participate due to a conflict of interest. So thank you very much. The next item is consideration and approval of workers' compensation insurance 2014-2015.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. Agenda item 8D is consideration and approval of renewal rates for workers' compensation insurance coverage. We received a renewal quote from TASB, our current carrier, and they're proposing a no rate increase for this year. Minimal increase overall due to the additional payroll. Again, we're confident with TASB. They've been our carrier for the past 5-6 years, and we've had a good record with them. So we're recommending to renew with TASB for another year. And we also discussed this at the Employee Benefit Committee.
Ms. Young, do you have any comments?
No, there seemed to be no question in regard to the workman's compensation insurance.
All right. Any other comments from the board? All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion for approval as recommended by administration for the workers' compensation insurance for 2014-2015.
I second the motion.
Moved by Mr. De Leon and seconded by Dr. Muniz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item next is approval of travel reimbursement rates for 2014-2015. Mr. Julio Cavazos.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. Agenda item 8D is approval of trial reimbursement rates for the upcoming school year. We bring this recommendation on an annual basis to the board to approve our actual travel rates. These have not increased over the past year. We're recommending for breakfast $9, lunch $16, and dinner $22 as a per diem for our employees. Be glad to answer any questions that the board might
Mr.
have.
President, I move approval of the travel reimbursement rates for 2014-2015 as recommended by administration.
I second.
Moved by Dr. Pettis, seconded by Mrs. Fleurier. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item next is matters relating to human resources. At this time, first item is approval of 2014-2015 PDAS appraisers. Mrs. Vargas.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members. Item 9A is approval for PDAS appraisers for the 2014-15 school year. On an annual basis, we bring forth our list of administrators to serve as PDAS appraisers for our teacher evaluations. If you'll look at the list, we do have 2 vacancies on our list, and we will be bringing those people forward at a later date. But we do bring forward most of our administrators today for PDAS appraisers.
Do we have any further comments or questions from the board?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
just Mrs. Vargas or Dr. Cavazos, has a process in terms of, I know the people change in terms of which administrators serve as that? I guess most of them do, is that correct? Serve as appraisers or?
Right. Most of our administrators that you see here are going to be principals and assistant principals.
Sure.
We do have some central office staff in case a staff member asks for a second appraiser. We'll have somebody that's in central office that can serve as that second appraiser as well.
My only question is I know that there's been some significant improvements to the appraisals. I mean, in terms of in terms of the quality of the folks in the classrooms and visiting classrooms, things like that. But has the quantity, do the number of appraisals, or is that all remained the same in terms of the process of appraisals? Is that a fair question? Has that changed or increased or anything?
We are required one one observation appraisal to take place. However, that data, in addition to the walkthroughs, which we have increased, would provide significant more opportunities for our principals to truly see what's going on in the classroom and compile all that data to create a summative evaluation for each employee. So we haven't increased the number of required observations from the state, but we have increased the walkthrough requirements. And so we're hopeful that with those new processes, our principals are better able to truly see what's going on in our classrooms and have true evaluations available for all our staff as we look to make decisions on staffing.
And I mention that only because, Mrs. Valdez and Dr. Noyola, only because, you know, in every industry, whether it's education, healthcare, you know, whatever you have it, I mean, it just seems like the more that the leaders are out there with the troops, so to speak, and you know, and so I can tell you, like, you know, for banking, just to pick a random,
Sure.
you know, just to pick a random field in banking, that, you know, when managers out there have daily huddles with their people, and it could be for 5 minutes, and say, you know what, yesterday I saw this, and today I want you to focus on this, this, and this, and, you know, I saw you out there, and you working that customer, and you this, and that, and that was awesome, but let me give you some feedback here, and sometimes it's not the full appraisal, but it's just that leader's just engaging with that person, the quality of performance goes up. And it can take two, and so I just want to, again, applaud what you're doing, Dr. Nola, as the Chief Academic Officer, and what you're doing, Dr. Cavazos, because I've heard it's just the principals are out in the classrooms more, and that the assistant principals are out in the classrooms more. Just as you all have become an amazing systems of support for each campus, because I've heard that as well, now they are in turn becoming assistants of support for their teachers. And
Right.
that's where the magic happens. And so I just want to put that plug out there for, let's keep that going, because even if it's just not the official, this is your appraisal, but the more they're out there engaging with the teachers in classrooms, like, yeah, I saw you do this is awesome. You know, do you mind if I have another teacher come observe, or do you mind that just goes so, or the other way is like, you know, I mean, you could be, you know, can we maybe, you know, let me give you areas of improvement or whatever. But I just think the more we're kind of measuring that, the more we're out there, and I think it's awesome. So anyway, sorry to get sidetracked, but you know, what you're doing is working. I appreciate that, and I think it's gonna be very impactful for the students.
You know, very early on at the beginning of last year, we brought forward our principles of the Harlingen learning community. And we talked about how one of the pieces was going to be the monitoring of teaching and learning, and that's how we moved into the number of observations and walkthroughs and so forth that we were expecting from our principals. And so this year, as we're expanding that principles of the Harlingen learning community in relation to monitoring of teaching and learning, and you just hit it on the head a couple of minutes ago, because our next step as we expand that piece, so we've gotten our principals into the classroom, now what do we do with what we're seeing? So this year, our focus in regards to monitoring and teaching and learning is working with our principals on how do we have those conversations. So now we've seen what's going on. Now, how do we provide that feedback? How do we have those discussions with our teachers, you know, recognizing those that are doing that outstanding work, but how do we support our teachers that need some additional help in those areas? And so this year it will be now moving one step further. What do we do with everything that we're seeing? And so to your point, it's about those conversations that need to take place. So that'll be the second part of our focus on that monitoring of teaching and learning.
Just another observation I've made, Mr. President, and Dr. Pettis makes a very good point as a non-educator coming from the private sector, and the fact that the attention to results is so important. And we look at, I know Dr. Cavazos, your team, you know, last year you all went out, and you took not just your instructional staff, but your support staff, like the CFO, Mr. Tapia, others, and they do that. So they can become familiar with what goes on in the classroom. But one of the things that I would say we take a look at is the organizational health. We have that feedback as to the leadership on a campus, and we look at then the results of the student achievement for that campus. The question is there a correlation between organizational health and student achievement? In some campuses, it's very predictable. but others is probably not. I think it's an opportunity really to say, look at the accountability from the point of view of that, yes, we're accountable, from the parent to the student, to the teacher, to the principal, to the executive staff, to the superintendent and the board. You know, that's where it ought to be. But I think we need to look at that because I might like you. You're very affable in your personality and you're likable. But by the same token, it's like the internal auditor, very likable. But that internal auditor we have, Mr. Desma, she gets down to the results. And we're saying here with what you're doing with PDAS, it's an opportunity to say, now, how do we have the conversation with principals, with the conversation with teachers about, you know, how can we improve what we're doing? I mean, everything is positive, but I think then you'll see the needle moving. Because when I look at even the awards that, recognitions that campuses get and what have you, but when I look at the data, there's not always a correlation between the data and organizational health. So I'm saying that we need to kind of look at that and make sure that every campus will make sure that student achievement is number one. We like we like our teachers, we like our principals, we want to see how well our students are doing. So I think in terms of BDAS, that's an opportunity we want to say that, you know, it's like, you know, you might not really like me, but I'm gonna make you work hard. You know, it's kind of like working out. You know, you don't like this, but at the end of the day, you're gonna feel better.
And Mr.
Right?
Mr. McShann, I think that's, you know, going back to what you said, you know, I like the way that ties in because it's sort of like in the real world, those daily huddles that the private sector does, they do it for a reason. They do it because it's daily professional development, you know, but it produces results, you know,
Right.
and that, precisely that reason, because they know it's sort of like just retraining your people, sort of like this is, you know, and so the more frequent kind of, connection with the folks that kind of, you know, sometimes we have in every field, we have a knowing doing gap. Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. They know what they should be doing. They're just not doing it, right? And so there's always that knowing doing gap, and that's where that leader can come in and just that daily huddle, that those daily, you know, or those weekly, however it happens, and really, impact the performance of the teachers in the classroom. So.
And thank you very much. I just thought that would be something that, certainly we're very proud of what we're doing, but the board and the superintendent, we know where we want to go with this.
Mr. President, I move approval of the 2014-2015 PDAS or PDAS appraisers.
I second.
Moved by Dr. Pettis, seconded by Mr. McShann. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number next, approval of revision to local policies BQA local, FEC local, and FFE local on first reading. Ms. Vargas.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Cavazos, board members. So we bring three local policies for your consideration and possible approval on first reading. Our first policy is BQA local, planning and decision-making process. Recommended changes to this local policy addresses the committee membership of the District-Wide Education Improvement Council, or also known as the DEIC. We're asking that we align our membership for this committee to the changes that we made earlier this year to the Teacher Advisory Committee, and that's found in DGB local. These changes also add our newest campuses to this policy, which include Dr. Cano Freshman Academy and the Harlingen School of Health Professions. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
President, I move approval of the,
I have two more.
oh, you have two more? Oh,
Yes.
okay, I'm sorry.
I'll go on to the next two. We also have local policy FEC, which is attendance and attendance for credit. And these recommended changes to student attendance procedures include a recommendation for a designated time for attendance taking versus a designated period for attendance taking. We also have one more policy, FFC local, student welfare and student support services. And this policy identifies our liaison for homeless students. We are updating this policy to reflect our current liaison, the Director for Federal Programs, Thelma Reynolds. These policies were discussed earlier at our Policy Audit Committee meeting, and our chairperson is Mrs. Fleurier, and she may have additional information to share at this time.
And we had, I think, a thorough and very healthy discussion of the policies, and we appreciate your leadership, and I move approval as recommended by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Been moved by Mrs. Fleury and seconded by Mr. De Leon. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Next item is adoption of revised policy EIC local on first reading. Dr. Noyola.
Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, board members, superintendent, staff, and audience, as a continuation to the policy committee meeting held earlier this evening, we bring forward revisions to policy EIC local on first reading only, as these changes will impact students during this upcoming school year. The first revision consisted of a minor change in wording designed to bring clarity to what courses can and cannot be considered when determining class rank. And then the last two changes involved the addition of 2 new courses that shall be used for determining class rank. The first of those 2 changes involve the addition of AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, which would replace AP Physics B, and that is a recommendation coming through from College Board. And then the other course that would be included is the Engineering Design and Problem Solving course, which can be offered as a 4th science for our students. So consequently, we recommend approval of the adoption of policy EIC local on first reading only.
Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Moved by Mr. McShann,
Second the motion.
seconded by Dr. Pettis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, matters related to district operations. Mr. Tapia, would you give us a facilities report, please?
Yes, thank you, President. Mr. Powers, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos. On August 5th, the Facilities Committee meeting had a meeting, and we discussed several items. The first item we discussed was a presentation on the School Safety Security Audit Report. Ms. Fidela Hinojosa, consulting with Region 1, conducted our audit, visited our schools, and gave us very high rates on her inspections of our practices and procedures that we follow for safety at our schools. She was very pleased with our results, and also stated to the board that she wanted to invite our maintenance department to present at the Region 1 safety procedures training that she's doing for districts in the region as a model school district. We also got an update on the School of Health Professions. The project's about 75% complete, and we went over the project and discussed a small change order that we presented later that evening. We also discussed the Aquatic Center. The architect was there and the contractor. About 85% complete. I discussed some of the technical issues, and the construction now is slated to be completed late September, early October. We'll get more of an update at the next meeting. We also discussed the classroom wing addition at Jefferson, some small renovation projects like the kitchen renovation at the high school, some small restroom renovations, some canopies, and small roofing projects. And finally, we presented one small change order, and Mr. Julio Cavazos gave a report on the construction funds and the balances. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Mr. McShann is the chair of that committee. Do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Last week, that was on August 4th, is it 5th? We had a committee meeting. We had a walkthrough for the Natatorium Aquatic Center. Dr. Cavazos, Tapia, and myself, we donned, at least Dr. Cavazos and I put on hard hats. And really, we really had an eye-opener as to what is happening with the construction. And so we had a heart-to-heart conversation with our contractors about the urgency to complete certainly that facility, but certainly making sure they have fidelity, making sure that quality is number one. But it's, I would, if you get an opportunity to go out and just take a look at what they've done, they're really making a lot of progress. We're pleased with what we saw. And then at the Facilities Committee meeting, we had the architect, Mr. Janak, was here, and the contractors. They gave us a very thorough report. So we like where we are at this point. Now we're going to have an additional I guess, concession stand. It would be on would that be the north end?
The south end of the building and the north
South end
end.
of the building, north end of the football field.
Right.
That's pretty important because we want to have it ready for that Bird Bowl and for that Battle of the Arroyo. Notice what I'm wearing today, so I hope it's not showing up. But we're looking forward. Hopefully it'll be finished. So then, actually, it will give the participants in the audience to really use that concession stand, and we're very pleased with where they are. And of course, the other report very thorough as usual. Mr. Tapia, we're making great progress there. But one thing though that we talked about was safety, and that was the Region 1 Education Service Center representative gave the report, and we would like the public to know, the parents in particular, that when children come to our schools, they're safe. In fact, it was pointed out that they had a 0.6%, I guess, control. You couldn't get into the building 98.6% of the time. In other words, if I want to break in and get in, you couldn't get in. He said, this is a tough school district to get into. But we put in place safeguards, and I think that is something that's worthy for the public to know, that the children are safe when they come to our public schools. We're very proud of that report. I'm sure Mr. Tapia would elaborate further if we'd like for. Then thank you, Travis, for being here today. We appreciate Valley Morning Star's support of our district. Your coverage has been excellent. But that is a report that families want to make sure their children are safe. And we couldn't have said that 3 years ago, but we can say it today. So we're very proud of that. Excellent facilities committee meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. McShann. All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of a delegate and alternate for 2014 TASB Delegate Assembly.
Mr. President, I would like to nominate Mrs. Jerry Fleury for the delegate and Dr. Bobby Muniz as our alternate for the 2014 TASB Delegate Assembly.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. Moved by Dr. Pettis, seconded by Mr. McShann. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, congratulations to the new delegates.
Thank you.
And
if Jerry needs some medication, you can't miss out.
Interestingly, I thank you very much for your confidence in us, correct, Dr. Muniz? I would like to say, though, interestingly, that I think the last time I attended was a number of years ago, and Dr. Muniz would be pleased to know that the discussion that took place on the floor that time, somewhat to the surprise of the state leadership, was the very strong expression of support for local pharmacies as opposed to mail order pharmacies when they were thinking of adopting the insurance. So it's very interesting to hear. I certainly was not surprised from the floor because I was one on the floor who was having that discussion. But it was interesting hearing the state leaders afterwards. They said they didn't realize the sentiment was so strong for local pharmacies, and I thought that you may not come from a small town, but in small towns we trust our local pharmacies too. So.
all right.
Thank you for the comment.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, let's move on then. We're going to go into executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082 of the Open Meetings Act. This time we will go into executive session. Thank you.
I move approval as recommended by staff.
Second the motion.
Moved by Mrs. Fleury, seconded by the doctor here, so we move on. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Item number 2, consider employment of teachers and other professional staff.
Move approval of employment of teachers and other professional staff as recommended by administration in executive session.
Second.
All right, moved by Dr. Pettis, seconded by Mr. De Leon. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, consider recommendations regarding employment of the renewal of administrator term contracts for 2014-2015 school year.
Mr. President, I move that the board extend the multi-year term contract of the principals of Travis Elementary School for an additional year through the end of the 2015-2016 school year, and I further authorize the board president to execute employment contract to the employee accepting this offer.
I second the motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. McShann, seconded by Dr. Muniz. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
You professionals luncheon?